Welcome to the Business Spotlight. Today, really looking forward to our guest. I have Alexandra Roberts, and she is from Utility Warehouse. And I'm really excited to hear a bit more about what you do and some of the lessons you've learned along the way. So I'm going to start straight with my first question. Alex, what do you do for how long? And tell me a little bit how that journey's been like for you up to date.
Gosh, yeah. So I've been working with the company now for 9 years. So it all started when my son was about 5 months old. I had him he was 32 weeks when he was born, so quite prematurely. And I was currently working in had a corporate job. It was in marketing and advertising. So quite full on, and I had to leave that really quite abruptly because I started having problems with my pregnancy, and it was quite clear that I wouldn't be able to continue working. I ended up in hospital for quite a long time before my son was born, and then we were in special care baby units for quite a while after he was born. So as you can imagine, going from being quite career focused and work oriented, all of a sudden, not only have I got to deal with being a mum, but I'm then having so many other things to think about in terms of caring for my child. And it was just an absolute nightmare, to be honest with you. I couldn't focus on anything that wasn't about getting my son well. And I didn't know how that was going to sort of pan out. Over his first year, he was in and out of hospital. He had a couple of operations, pediatric appointments, all these sorts of things that I felt I really wanted to be able to prioritize. And obviously you just can't do that as a working mum when you're working full time. So I made a really, really brave decision, and I didn't know if it was the right one, not to go back to work at that point. We were going to manage just on my partner's salary, and that was going to mean no holidays. It was going to mean no dinners out, no luxuries. We were literally just going to break even. And I thought, I was saying this to someone today. I was like, I can do this. I can give up my holidays, for my son. I can do all these things for my son. And about 3 months in, I realized I really couldn't. I hated not having money and not contributing and not being part of kind of like, how our family ran. And I just knew that I needed to do something else. And I didn't know what that looked like. And just out of total luck, I mean, I suppose you make your own luck anyway, but total luck, I bumped into somebody who was already working for Utility Warehouse. And she just suggested that I gave it a shot. And to be honest, I didn't know much about the company. I had absolutely no knowledge of gas and electrical, broadband, or anything like that. But she said to me that she was earning more money now at home with her son than she was earning when she was in her full-time career. And she ended the conversation with, she's had 5 free holidays in the last 4 years. And I was just like, I don't care what it is, just sign me up, I'm in. Because that just sounded like an amazing situation to be able to prioritize my son, to earn well, and to be able to give them, nice holidays as well. As you can tell already, I do love my holidays. So it was kind of like, a few sliding doors moments in there, just at exactly the right time for me. When I needed this kind of a solution, it came along. And as I say, that was 9 years ago. And, I don't know if people watching will know kind of how Utility Warehouse works, but we encourage people to join our team. And so, I was one of those people 9 years ago. And now, it's my job really to inspire other people to come and join us and start a journey that could be similar to mine. And what's interesting now is I can sit in front of people and say exactly the same thing that lady said to me, because I earn more money now doing this from home, part-time, being a mum, than I earned in my full-time career that I'd been doing for 19 years and I had a university degree for. So yeah, it's been quite a journey.
Wow, amazing journey by the sounds of it, Alex. So what's been some of the biggest lessons you've learned along the way?
There's definitely been a lot. I mean, resilience is probably up there as the number one. And I think, it's really easy to take things personally in a situation where you are, I mean, we never really talk about it as being sales, because ultimately this business is about relationships and creating relationships, getting people to know you, like you, trust you, and then trust your recommendation. But at the same time, anytime you're in a situation where you're effectively asking someone the question, this is what I've got, do you want it? And they say no, you got to pick yourself up from that and come back tomorrow and have the same conversation with somebody else with exactly the same level of passion. Otherwise you're wasting your time. And I think that's probably the hardest thing that people face in our business, is the fact that because of the way that we're paid, we're not actually paid to show up. We're paid when we get a result. So we have to show up first in order to get the result. And the problem is, if you've had too much rejection and you don't build up that resilience, then you don't show up and then you don't get the result. So then it becomes a bit of a spiral. People are like, oh, it's not really working for me. And you kind of think, yeah, but you're not actually showing up, are you? And it's that kind of like inability to deal with that level of rejection when you have to understand that they're not rejecting you. You know, I say this to my team all the time. It's not you that's being rejected. I have a best friend who runs a fantastic hairdressing salon. Her mum does not use her hairdressing salon, right? It doesn't mean it doesn't work. She's got a fantastic business. Her mum prefers a completely different type of hairdresser. And that's something that I think, you know, we all have to understand, is that, you know, what we offer, we get it. We think it's the most amazing thing that's ever been, you know, dreamed up. But if other people don't get that or don't see it right now, firstly, they might come back to it at a later date and they might see it in the future. But secondly, it doesn't mean it's not going to work. If one person decides that there's something else out there that suits them better, that's okay. What's not okay is taking that one situation where someone's rejected you and then not coming back because you can't deal with that. So a lot of the training that we do in the team is about mindset, and it's about coming back from disappointment, because, you know, I don't want it to sound like, you know, our business is just full of disappointment, but it's just life, isn't it? You know, people reject you, and you just have to detach yourself from that and realize that it's not me they're rejecting. They just don't like this idea. And as I say, I can come back tomorrow and I can speak to somebody else and they will think it's the best thing that they've ever seen.
Oh, it's such great lesson there around mindset and resilience. So I absolutely love it, Alex. Thank you. So, what advice would you give to someone thinking of starting out in business, whether that is through UW or any other business? What advice would you give them?
Do you know what? I think a big part of it, especially with UW, is just giving it a shot, because you've got nothing to lose sometimes trying these things. And I think a lot of people are resistant to trying new things because they have that fear, don't they, of what if it doesn't work? What if it goes wrong? What if I'm not good enough? You know, and all of these things, all this self-doubt we worry about. The reality is we won't know the answer to any of those questions unless we actually give it a shot. And people often say, you know, to me, you know, but what if it doesn't work for me? And my response is, yes, but what if it does? And that's the thing, isn't it? We will never know if we don't just give it a shot. And that doesn't just mean joining, you know, with us, that's actually getting over the line and actually becoming a partner with Utility Warehouse. But it's making that first phone call, it's sitting that first appointment. So in any business, if somebody's thinking about, you know, getting set up, I mean, you know, what if it fails? But what if it doesn't? You know, it could just be that one thing. For me, this absolutely was. It was the one thing that has changed everything for me. You know, we are now, you know, we go on holiday more than we would have done. We have a nice new house renovation that we probably wouldn't have been able to do. We're looking at my partner retiring in a few years. You know, all of those things would not have been possible without two things. One, a steady income from him that he's worked hard for, but two, this additional income that I'm now building alongside. So if I had worried too much about, you know, what will people think of me? What if it doesn't work? What if I'm not good at it? I could have said no to it and we wouldn't be in this position now.
Absolutely fantastic advice there. So what would you say is the biggest hurdle you had to overcome, and what did you learn from it?
So I think in my business in particular, it's very people oriented, right? And nobody's being paid to be here. Everybody's a volunteer. They're only being paid when they get a result. So probably the biggest thing that I've had to learn, I guess, again, it comes a little bit down to the rejection as well. But, you know, I've got people in my team that aren't like me, right? I am an absolute, like, I just want to get out there and I want to get it done. And I can't understand why anybody else wouldn't want to feel like that about this business. But you know what? Other people in my team have completely different priorities. They're not here to build a retirement fund. They're not here to, you know, help their husband retire, for example. They're just here for an extra couple of £100 a month. And I think what I had to understand was not everybody is in this for the same reasons as me. Not everybody, you know, wants to put as much time and effort into it as I do. And that's actually okay, because there's a place for everybody in our team. You know, whether there's somebody that just wants an extra couple of £100 a month, a year, or whether they want a couple of £1,000 a month, you know, wherever they're at, whatever success looks like to them, I have to understand that that's where they're at. And, you know, we have another phrase in the business, which is love them where they're at, right? So it's about making sure that, you're looking after your team members and you're not actually trying to put on them what you want. Because obviously the better everybody else does, the better I do. But I have to make sure that I'm not putting that on my team. I'm actually meeting them where they are and understanding what it is that makes them tick, and coaching them to help them achieve those things, but not necessarily making it about what I want. It's much more about what's in it for them than what's in it for me, because ultimately, if you treat people like that, what's really interesting is, and another phrase, and I'm sure I've stolen this from somebody, but if you help enough people get what they want, you end up getting what you want. And that's very, very true in our business. And so if you focus too much on what you want and not so much on what they want, then that's where you can trip yourself up, because then you come a bit, you don't come across well, really. And that's where it can trip you up. So I think that's definitely something that I've had to learn, is that not everybody's the same as me and not everybody's in it for the same reasons as me. And it's much more important to meet them where they're at and understand their reasons and their motivations and help them achieve what they want to do. And ultimately the rest of it all falls into place then.
Such a fantastic point of view and mindset there. I absolutely love it. What's one thing you wish more people knew about your industry or about your business?
What a fantastic opportunity it is. I mean, it is, it's interesting because obviously it's a multi-level marketing business. It gets tarred with different brushes because there are other multi-level marketing businesses out there that perhaps don't work so well or aren't. I don't know. I don't want to discredit anybody else's business, but it is the fastest growing in the UK of its kind. And I think, often people come at it and they have that preconceived idea that it's not going to work, or it's a scam, or, my neighbor's friend's dog did it once and it didn't work for them, so I'm going to badmouth it. So we do get some bad press, and again that comes down to that resilience. You have to kind of just look past that, and people have preconceived ideas and opinions on it, and that's a really hard thing to come up against. So I guess if I could have one wish, it would be that every time I suggested this to somebody, they didn't have a preconceived idea about it. But I think I'd be living in la la land if I thought that was ever going to be the case in business. Again, to relate it to anybody else's business, there's always going to be people out there that have used, a similar company or even your company. Maybe they haven't had the best experience, or maybe somebody else has told them something about it. And you have to, again, it all comes down to that resilience, doesn't it? You just have to accept that and be open to having a conversation with somebody. And I think that's also a really key thing, is not kind of like arguing the toss with somebody. I always like to understand their opinion. I mean, one of the things that I often say to the team is, if somebody has any negativity towards it, or objections and things like that, actually unpack them, ask them questions about it, because it makes people feel like you're actually interested in their opinion. Ultimately, you want to show how this isn't what they think it is. But rather than just coming in and saying, oh, no, you're wrong, or it's not that, or, it's a legitimate business, how could it be that? Actually say, what do you mean by that? So what are the negatives about that? Unpack it a little bit so that you can actually come back on the individual elements of it and make it look like you're actually having an informed conversation about it, rather than necessarily shutting them down. Because even though their opinion, I mean, in our circumstance, sometimes their opinion is factually incorrect and they just are wrong. But for me to go straight into a conversation and tell them that, well, I mean, they're definitely not going to end up knowing me, liking me, and trusting me, are they? If I come at them with that kind of hostility. So a lot of our business is about conversations. It's about opening up, brand new relationships, cultivating those relationships. And I think it's just worth, being mindful of that when you're going into a new conversation, even if somebody is being negative about, an experience they've had or that they've heard. 9 times out of 10, when people have a bad experience or some sort of negativity towards you, it's because so-and-so said something, and then it's got passed on, and then it's got passed on. And you can often actually combat that in a really kind of gentle way if you sound like you're interested in their opinion. And I also really like, and this is probably quite a good tip, we use it all the time, we call it feel, felt, found. And I'm sure it's something that lots of people use, but it's really good to be able to say, I know exactly how you feel about that opinion, because it's actually how I felt before I, found out a little bit more about it. But what I found is, and then you're, empathizing with their objection, understanding it and actually saying that, you know, I've got empathy with that, but this is my experience since. And that can really help to turn things around as well, because people, as I say, people don't like to be told that they're wrong. They like to be listened to and heard. So if you can do all of that in your conversation and at the same time deliver your message, then it's going to get through a lot easier, because they don't put up that brick wall.
Again, fantastic advice, and thanks so much for sharing all of that, Alex. What's the key to success for you?
Keep going. I mean, it absolutely is. You know, I say to people in our business, you know, we're not here to control the results, right? If I show somebody what I do, it's got nothing to do with me whether they decide to take it out or not. The only thing that I can control is how many people I show, how many people I invite. And that is the only thing that's going to get me closer to the goals that I have in my business, is to keep showing up and keep showing people. I don't really, you know, I can't control what head office does about pricing. I can't control if people like the color purple. I can't control what experience they've had in the past. I can't control if they're, you know, if they've contacted their broadband company and got a free deal for 6 months because they've complained. I can't control any of those things, but I can control how many people I show. So absolutely the key to success. And if you look at the people that are doing amazingly in our business and you compare them with somebody who's not doing so well, the single difference between them is the amount of people they've shown. And what happens when you get despondent with something, like I've said before, is you just don't show up. So when that starts to happen, it stops working. And then you think, oh, it's not working. And you have to realize that actually it's me that's not working. So, you know, it's not easy showing up when no one's actually paying you to show up unless you get a result. And it's a lot easier to come up with excuses as to why it's not working. But the key to success in this business is showing up day in, day out, and just keeping going. You know, we say never quit on a bad day. And if you always never quit on a bad day, then you'll actually never quit, because you'll also never quit on a good day either.
Absolutely right. I love that. Best book or podcast that
Gosh,
you
so many.
pay forward.
Do you know what I would actually say? And I'm afraid I can't even tell you who it's by, but I'm sure people can Google it. It's called The Slight Edge. And I really, really love the principle of the slight edge, which really just means, I mean, the best way to describe it is, if you had a pizza today, it's not really going to make a difference to you, right? But if you had a pizza every single day for a year, the chances are you'd put some weight on. So that combined effect of doing the same thing day in, day out will have a result in the end. And it's very similar to, you know, you can apply that to every element of our business. We often say just one more. You know, if every single day I do what I'm going to do, and then I just make one more phone call, or I just send one more message, or I have one more conversation with my team, if I do that every single day for a year, think about, you know, that's 365 odd telephone calls or messages that I've sent in a year. And just, you know, you just never know what could happen from those one occasions. I've had so many examples where people have just pushed themselves to do just that little bit extra, and then that's been the person that's come into the team and, you know, become the next leader in the business. And you just think, if I hadn't done that on that day, I wouldn't have that person working with me now. So I love the principle of the slight edge. It doesn't need to be a massive thing that you're changing, but if you change one thing and you do it consistently over a period of time, that all adds up together and it becomes, you know, an amazing result in the end.
Yeah, wonderful, and a really great book there. So thanks for sharing that. Any news, any offers you have that you'd maybe like to share with those watching and listening?
I would absolutely love to. So as I've said, I've probably come across already, in our business, there's two parts of the business. There's being a customer with us, and there's being a partner with us, enabling you to earn money by referring the customer opportunity. And at the moment, it's all about free energy. Now, who doesn't want free gas and electric? Would you like free gas and electric?
Doesn't want?
Of course, everybody wants free gas and electric. So what's amazing at the moment is our customers can benefit from free gas and electric, and so can our partners. So from a customer perspective, new customers that are coming on to us, depending on the number of services they take with us, are eligible for a certain number of free energy days over their first year, and the maximum is 24. So that actually could equate to about £120 a year coming off your gas and electric bill as an extra. We're already the cheapest fixed in the market, so we're already saving you money, but you can actually get an extra £120 a year off those bills. So saving money and having free energy from a customer perspective is amazing. But from the partner perspective, it's even more exciting because as a partner, you can become a member of our free energy club. And what that effectively means is you are rewarded for your consistency in the business. So on average, 1 to 2 customers a month actually means that the company will pay your gas and electric bill for you, in addition to paying you for the referrals as well. So imagine never having to pay another gas and electric bill. There's actually 450 partners in our business who've already qualified into that club and who are no longer paying their gas and electric bill. So all of these things are possible. And what's lovely about our business is they make the entry requirements for these qualifications really low. So it might not be a gas and electric bill free is a pretty big thing actually, but they may only be small things. We've got holidays for people who achieve massive things and all the rest of it, but this free energy club, this is ground level. This is affecting every single person in the country paying their gas and electric bill, and for a very, very low qualification each month, it's free. And I just think that's just absolutely amazing. And in addition to that, just to point out how amazing the company is, the company has also matched the number of people in that free energy club currently, which is about 450. They've times it, they've increased it and rounded it up, and they're giving 5,000 free days of energy to the fuel bank, which, if you don't know what it is, I think it operates a little bit like a food bank, where people that can't pay their energy bills can go to the fuel bank and they can actually claim these free energy days. So not only are we giving free energy days to the customer, to the partners, we're also giving it to people who are really struggling at the moment with fuel poverty.
Oh, that's really heartwarming. Such a wonderful offer there, and thanks for sharing that, Alex. This has been a really great interview. Thank you so much for taking the time out. And
absolute pleasure.
Thanks so much.